Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for one more person to come in the conference room and then we'll get started. If you have. And we have a quorum, so.
You guys have a quorum?
Mhm.
What's it date on? The last Thursday in February. Yeah.
It's actually be on. Yeah.
Have to come home that morning.
Let's come straight to it. Who we waiting on?
We're all set. Whenever you're ready.
We're ready to go. We've got a forum. It's after 11.
All right. For the CFCOG meeting for December the 9th to order. Thank everybody for being here. I'm sure you had other places to be this holiday season. I know I did. Mayor Bobby, would you like to lead us in an invocation and pledge? I appreciate it.
All right. It's that season, and I just ask that everyone here remembers those who may be struggling, whether it be health, financial, however we can help. Please guide us and encourage us to reach out and help those less fortunate. We certainly ask that the folks gathered here today can do the work that you see fit for us to do today, and remember all of our constituencies in that process. Amen.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're not my favorite.
Give me 30 seconds. I have something in my.
It's just
Absolutely.
the words don't come, right?
Did we run him off?
We're
He
chairless.
forgot something in his car.
Wow. Good job.
Mike had to step out. He said he was supposed to give me something and he left it in the car. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it was worth stopping the meeting for, if we should have waited till after. But we'll wait for our chairman.
You want to do the roll call real quick while we're waiting on him?
Well, I think we're going to do introductions with the roll call, and so we should wait for Mike.
Okay.
So we're just going to be on a
Here
quick
he is.
pause.
Oh, yep, I know what it is. New flag.
Ooh.
Been in my car for a week.
Thank you, sir.
I was at Brunswick County.
I turned it around and saw it. No.
So, Mike, why don't we do introductions instead of a roll call? I'll do the roll call will be part of the introduction, but we do have a couple of new
Yeah.
members and faces, and so it would be good for everybody to get an opportunity to know who everybody is.
All right, I'll start it off. I'm Mike Forte, Brunswick County Commissioner and Chairman of the COG. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here. Might as well go this way.
I'm Alan Serkin. I'm the Executive Director of the Cape Fear Council of Governments. For those of you online, I don't know why my camera's not working. I keep turning it on. It turns on for about 2 seconds and it turns itself back off. Happy that you all could be here as well. So.
I'm Brent Springer. I'm Pender County Commissioner, District 5.
April Radford, Cape Fear Council of Governments Clerk to the Board and Office Manager.
Sam Boswell, Cape Fear COG Transportation Planner and sometimes IT guy.
Jerry Groves, Pender County Commissioner, District 3, and I'm an alternate.
Ginger Brick. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for the Cape Fear COG and the Workforce Development Board as well.
Holly Pilson, the Director of the Area Agency on Aging with the Council of Governments.
Danny Nickel, I'm the lead for North Carolina Fellow, placed here at Cape Fear Council of Governments.
Hi, I'm Dawn Tucker. I am the Finance Director of Cape Fear Council of Governments and also serve as the Finance Officer.
Wes McLeod, Local Government Services Director here for the Cape Fear Council of Governments. Nice to meet you all. Good to meet you.
Vern Tillman, District 4 County Commissioner, Columbus County.
Lynn Barbie, Mayor of Carolina Beach.
Brenda Bozeman, Mayor of Leland and Vice Chair for the COG.
Well, I'm Robbie Bittner. I'm the external auditor with PD Mayor. So, happy to be here.
Oh, you're one of them.
All that riveting information.
And then we've got a couple folks online. I'm just going to go in order that it is on my screen. Noel, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Noel Fox. I serve as the legal counsel for Cape Fear Council of Governments.
April, you said Jan is not on quite yet?
Correct.
Okay, so Jan is not on. Marty, you want to say hi to the group?
Oh, unmuted, but.
We don't hear you, but we saw you unmute.
There it is. Wake up, Marty.
We didn't hear anything, sir. I guess maybe your mic isn't working or something, but in any case, Marty Cook is a Brunswick County Commissioner. He is an alternate on the COG. And then Ryan, good to see you, sir. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, Ryan Merrill, Commissioner, Town of Belleville.
We're going through introductions. It looks like Rich Alt just joined us. You want to introduce yourself, sir?
Okay, let's move on.
Rich Alt is the mayor of Southport. For those of you who don't know, Rich, for whatever reason, we can't hear you, although we see that you unmuted. All right, so
I'm not sure why that is, sir.
oh, there you are. Yeah, we heard that.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Just for the records, everybody knows, so we do have two alternates in the room, as well as Mayor Alt and Commissioner Merrill, who are not voting members. So just make sure everybody keeps that in mind. But we do have a quorum, and so we can move on.
Okay, thank you. Everybody got their packet via email. You have your agenda in front of you. I will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Brenda, second. And Barbie. We don't have to do a roll call. We got to in the room, right?
Correct.
Yeah, in fact, we don't have any voting members online at the moment.
Okay, excellent. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. I will also accept a motion to approve the minutes of our October 14th meeting.
So moved.
Mayor Barbie, second.
Second.
Laverne. Again, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Alan, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Haven't received any, unless any of our non-voting members have any comments.
Okay, moving on. Mr. Bittner, you have our attention. Kinda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Robbie Bittner. I'm a partner with PB Mayors. We are the external accounting firm to performing the external audit each year. Happy to be here. I'll say thanks to Alan and Dawn and the team here for helping us out and getting us all the information. The audit's a little later than normal this year, and that's by no fault of anybody at the COG or with us, but the state of North Carolina decided to change their confirmation process, and the first one we got was wrong. So we spent several more weeks after that trying to get it all right, but everything's good. And so just to start off with that piece, but I will also kind of go through each of you have this in front of you, I believe. We're going to go page by page as the chairman has asked me to do. Now, we're going to start really with just page one. As you are aware, our job as external auditors is to provide our opinion as to whether or not your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP. Page one is our audit opinion. There are 4 levels of opinion that we can issue. The highest and highest level of assurance that we can provide is the unmodified or clean opinion, which I'm happy to say that the COG did receive a clean opinion from us this year. So also in that same document, if you flip over to page 51, not going page by page, sir, but page 51, you will see this is in addition to our opinion on the financial statements. In accordance with government auditing standards, we are required to issue a report in your compliance with laws, regulations, grants, contracts, and we also would identify in this report any non-compliance, any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. So what are those? So when we have deficiencies in internal control as it comes to preparing the financial statements, there are 3 types or 3 levels of deficiency. The most severe is the material weakness, which is this is a deficiency that has the opportunity to cause a material misstatement in the financial statements. You can have a significant deficiency, which is less severe than a material weakness, but it still warrants attention by those charged with governance, in this case being the executive committee. And then the lowest level would be just a control deficiency. This would be an item that would not be reported in this report on page 51, but it would be either verbally communicated or communicated via a management letter. So happy to say that there were no issues with non-compliance, and we did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control to report this year. Moving on from there, a couple pages over, you'll have also our opinion in accordance with the uniform guidance on your compliance with the federal grants. Happy to say that we did issue an unmodified opinion in accordance with the uniform guidance, as well as did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control related to that compliance, which would be reported there if there were any. You'll see the same thing another page over in accordance with the State Single Audit Implementation Act. Again, here we had an unmodified opinion, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control related to that compliance. Further back in that compliance section just goes through and you'll see the schedule of findings and question costs, which there were no findings. And it will also identify what the major programs that we tested were this year, which was the agent program, which we have to test every year based on the state's dollar amounts there. Moving on from there, each have gotten this other letter in front of you. This is a report to the executive committee. Here, this is what we call our AUC 260, formerly State and Audit Standards 115 Auditors Communications to those charged with governance. These are required communications by audit standards to make sure that we keep the executive committee and those charged with governance informed about what's happening and going on in the enforcement audit. I'm not going to go through this document piece by piece because I feel like you can all read it, but I will hit the highlights. There were no significant accounting policies that changed during this year under audit. We did not identify any significant or unusual transactions during the course of the audit. There were no audit adjustments and no uncorrected misstatements throughout the course of the audit, which that's a testament to Dawn and her team over here to make sure that that stuff is clean. We also did not have any issues in any issues with management, any disagreements. One area on here on page 2 is a little bit different. Page 2 and 3 at the bottom, the shared responsibilities for independence. You'll see this is a little bit different than in previous years. Just it better explains the responsibilities not only by the COG, but then the responsibilities that we have to maintain that independence in accordance with the government audit standards. So That is a little bit different this year. The last piece that I'll go through is the performance indicator. As you are probably aware, a few years ago, the Local Government Commission created a section in the data input form, which is required to be submitted to the LGC with the audit report, called performance indicators. If they highlight red, when you are filling out this data input form, you have an indicator that requires direct communication from the executive committees back to the LGC. Happy to say that you did not have any performance indicators this year that require any sort of communication back. So the rest of this document goes through the significant accounting estimates made that are shown in the financials, that are reflected in the financial statements, as well as the significant communications that we had with management throughout the year. So with that, that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to take any questions or answer any questions anyone may have.
Are there any questions from Mr. Bittner?
I would like to say you were very clear in that you were talking about this year only, but it made it sound like we've had some of those issues in the past.
No issues. Just trying to state clearly that we didn't have anything throughout the course. Years ago, I believe we did have a significant deficiency related to the segregation of duties issues, which have been rectified.
Yes.
So, no, we have not had historically any significant compliance findings or material weaknesses and significant deficiencies in internal control. One other thing I'd like to mention, just so that everyone is aware, coming down the pipe are a couple of new GASB statements. We finally got 1 year of hiatus of implementing new things, but coming up this coming year, we will have one additional related to the inclusion of sick leave in the statement of net position and the calculation of that. So that's coming down, and then GASB 104 will be implemented in the next, I think it will be effective for fiscal year 26. Minor changes to spread. It will require the general fund budget to actual statement will become part of required supplementary information. So it will no longer be an audited part of the financial statements because RSI is not audited. I'm not sure what the LGC is going to want to do with that, if we're going to have it in two places or not. However, as of right now, it will move to the RSI section in 2 years. Other than that, but that will be the same for all governments. So the counties, cities, towns, everybody's will be moving to require supplementary information. So with that,
Anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Bittner, you stated earlier, I do, Mr. Chair, you stated earlier, you didn't see any significant changes to policy. Were there any changes at all, regardless of the significance?
There was nothing that had any, there were no new adoption of new policies this year that had any material effect on it.
I don't have anything else, sir.
Typically, that statement we're making, if there's a major change in accounting policy, such as a change in how an estimate is being done and or implementation of a new audit accounting standard, that's where we would report those.
Okay. Thank you.
And there weren't any new accounting standards this year.
Any other question? We truly appreciate this squeaky clean report. Oh, great news. You can stay.
I don't know, I might move over a little bit.
But you don't have to.
I certainly appreciate it, but I do need to get back. Got another audit to get out this week, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas to y'all, and y'all have a great and safe holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, get you.
The candy queen.
So,
Alan,
safe travel.
and if we need a motion to accept it.
So Mike, we will need a motion to accept the official,
Yes, sir.
audit.
All right, I need a motion to accept the auditor's report.
Motion.
Brenda, second.
Second.
And Barbie, All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, finance reports, Dawn. I thought we just did that.
This will be a little bit quicker and less painful. One thing I'd like to report on me personally, even though I've been a CPA since 2003, this year I took the local government finance officer tests and I passed those.
Had a girl.
So I will now be a certified local government finance officer. So.
Congratulations.
Done.
All right, now on to the budget report through November 30th. Not a lot to report in our, let's see, our homeless services department. We are right on target for spending a lot of our funds. For the new members, we are a reimbursement-based organization. So a lot of our expenses throughout the year will run either a month or 2 months behind because they're not reported as expenses until we actually reimburse them or they're earned. So we do have to, instead of being like it should be 42%, it'll be at a third as opposed to 3 months as opposed to 4 months. So it's a little bit different, but we have a tendency to spend all of our money, and some of our funds, especially in our homeless departments, our ESG monies run on a calendar year as opposed to our fiscal year ending of June 30th, and our HUD grants are supposed to run on a federal fiscal year, but HUD seems to do it whenever they sign the grant. So it could be the beginning of the year runs from September to October. Sometimes it runs November to December. It's just, we have a flow chart of when when the funds run out. So it can be a little bit more complicated, but I do try to balance that out by putting items that we will not spend in this fiscal year and will spend in the following fiscal year in our reserve balances. And then I'll also let you know where we're at according to that funding source. So like for our ESG funding right now, it says we're at 13% and 39%. We're actually about where we need to be. Most of all of those programs in the ESG, all of our subcontractors, they spend all of their money by December 31st. So that money should be spent. Our PSH program, it seems a little high, but that program is ending December 31st. That is our permanent supportive housing. We kind of took it on as a that the county wouldn't lose the money. And now we have another organization that's going to be taking it on. So this program's actually ending, and we're going to spend all of those funds, and then it'll go on to another organization in our community. The other programs are where they need to be. And our LGS government services, local government services, we're all running pretty good on those. The ARPA is a 2-year grant. That actually was a 4-year money supply, and it runs out in 2026. And our flood mitigation is a 2-year grant as well. So those are a little bit behind, but not much. The special projects, this program, this pot of money will actually end December 31st. We'll have all of that spent. And then one of our budget adjustments is actually to increase this pot of money. So we will have a little bit more. And our area agency on aging, Holly and her department have no trouble getting their money spent throughout the year. It's a little bit behind right now because we had some of our counties, it took a little bit longer to get our contracts back. We're just waiting. It just has to go through the process of crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, but this one actually runs on a calendar year. So it normally gets spent. Our counties have no trouble in their senior centers spending their funds. And then in our WIOA program, our contractors are slightly underspent, but not too bad. They're doing pretty good this year. And in our admin program, we're up a little bit in the spending in that. But we also, at the beginning of the year in our admin, we pay a lot of our annual dues and stuff like that. So it'll even itself out. Right now, it appears we're a little bit overspent, but we're not. And in our administration department, we're right where we need to be, 42%. And the administration is actually, it's down there at the bottom because it goes through the other agencies. It's our indirect cost. I went through that very quickly, and I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions?
Anybody?
And I'm always here. If anybody thinks of something later, they can pop me an email or call me and I'll be glad to answer your questions.
One way that we will operate very differently from your organizations is that, because we have, fixed amount of funds for special purposes being granted to us from certain agencies, our goal is to spend all of our money as opposed to necessarily to try to be, to try to potentially not spend money and save it. If you guys with your budgets don't spend money, you put it in the fund balance. If we don't spend money, it goes back to the state or the federal government. So we try to make sure that those resources are deployed in our region. So getting our funds spent is an important component of what we do. Yeah.
Any of our grant funds, we will spend 100%. Some of our other, like the only two programs that don't, will not spend 100% unless it's needed is our planning services, our fee, when we do fee for services, or our general fund, depending on how all of that works out. Because this year we did have a little bit of a net general fund increase.
Are there any questions?
Anything going on the report? We'll accept the motion to approve the budget report. So, Mayor Bobby, seconded by Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. What is the budget ordinance amendment?
I will present that to you guys. This is a very small and basic, pretty basic amendment. So we are increasing our budget by $60,000 for our local government services program. Don sort of alluded to that special projects grant or program that we had, which was funded by money from North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency, to put a management specialist position that was hired by the COG, part-time in the town of Bolton and part-time in the town of Sandyfield. We expect those funds to expire at the end of this month, but both of those communities have been so pleased with the service that they're getting that they have both signed contracts with us to extend that position through the end of the fiscal year. And so it's $30,000 for each of those two communities. And so we're increasing our revenues by $60,000 and as well our expenses by $60,000 in our local government services department. In our workforce development department, we have had, and Dawn may need to explain this better than I, but we have had in our audit and in our fund balance for workforce development for a very long number of years, we have carried a fund balance of, I believe it is accrued absences. Is that right? That we were able to in the past accrue that we are no longer able to accrue. And so we have been unable to spend those dollars and they've just sort of been on the books for 15 years and we sort of have the money but can't spend it. And so after many backs and forth with the state Division of Workforce Solutions, we finally got direction on what to do. So we're just going to return the funds. It doesn't do us any value because we can't spend it. And so that has been in the workforce fund balance. And so in this budget, you'll see that we have appropriated workforce fund balance that we're asking you to appropriate $51,194 that we will basically just cut a check back to the state.
What happened
off the books
years ago when we first started, when the GASB passed the rule that you had to accrue for compensated absences, what they were doing when that first happened, and this is WIOA money, so this has been at least 15 years ago when they started doing this, they would pull out the amount of money for, because our grants, you have to be reimbursed. So you have to ask for a reimbursement after it's been spent. But they would pull out the money that was needed to require to cover that liability throughout the next year.
The vacation liability.
Yeah, the vacation liability.
Somebody takes a day off, they still get paid. They didn't take the day off in this period. You carry that liability forward.
And then
you didn't get a reimbursement this year.
So you would end up making, making adjustments every year. Well, then they did that for a few years and then they decided that GASB and all their wonderful wisdom decided that probably wasn't what we should be doing. And so it's not, we just have to spend the money. And so I had made two suggestions to the state, either give it back to them or allow us to use it now, because it's pretty much admin money, to use it in our admin money for the workforce development program and just not draw down current amount funds. Well, they had sent a message off to the Department of Labor, and DOL $50,000 probably wasn't enough for them to, they haven't acted very quickly on responding to that. So the DWS finally I'd circled back to Jennifer at the state and asked her, how do you want us to handle this? And she's finally just said, why don't you just give it back to us and we'll wait to hear for a response from DOL. So we're going to have to cut a check to the state, but because this is in our fund balance, it does require us to get board approval to use this money. I mean, in essence, we're using it.
So basically, we drew down $51,000 worth of federal dollars that we didn't spend.
And it's just,
And now we can't spend it.
Yeah.
Shame.
So, Mr. Sheriff, if I can, interject here. Is that money accruing interest?
No,
Can we hire somebody else? Can we put somebody else to work with using that fund?
they don't want us to utilize those funds. They want us to send it back to them, because that was my first suggestion with them, was to use it that way.
Who is they?
The state of North Carolina.
Who
That's our grant.
They grant it to us.
They grant it
So
to
they're
us.
the granting agency. So any expenditure has to meet their eligibility requirements.
And hiring somebody doesn't meet the requirements?
Not just hiring somebody, like we couldn't spend it at all on anything. We drew it down for sick time, to pay sick time, or vacation time rather, for employees. But they have said that we can't spend it on any eligible activity.
They want us to send it back to them. What they'll probably do is put it in their pot and redistribute it as special grants. I mean, it's WIA money. I mean, it's not even federal legislation anymore.
Right, it's so it's not WIOA, which is the current legislation, it's WIA, which is the prior legislation. So the federal law that authorized the funds is not even the law that's in effect anymore. So, but obviously, we need to be able to submit to the state for reimbursement eligible expenses. If we submit an expense that's not eligible and they don't reimburse us, then we have to come up with $51,000 of those expenses out of our own pocket. We're not willing to risk that. So we asked them, what should we do so that we ensure that it's an eligible expenditure? And they said, return it. So we're returning it.
So they didn't provide you with any criteria as far as expenses?
No, she just sent me an email and said, here's the form you need to fill out when you send the check back.
Because we
Did she provide any reason why she couldn't give any expenses?
No, sir. I mean, she's been waiting for the response from DOL. And the federal level, I'm sorry, the Federal Department of Labor is who, it goes from the Federal Department of Labor, and the federal government does the appropriations. Then it goes to the State Division of Workforce Solutions, and they distribute that money to the COGs. And so they were waiting for a response from DOL. DOL's not giving them a response. So instead of us to keep holding it, and it's just kind of out there it's been out there. We've been trying to get an answer for them for 2 years now? For like 2 years. So she just said, instead of it hanging out with us, just give it to them, and then it can hang out with the state until DOL decides to answer.
The state's reluctance with letting us spend it is that the funds are from a prior legislation's appropriation. And so the state can't guarantee that our spending that money is legitimate or legal.
Yeah.
Or reimbursable at least. And if they can't reimburse us, we don't want to spend it.
Has any of the other board members reached out to the Congress or Senate to try to help them out?
We've been carrying this, as she said, for 15 years. And we've been carrying it over year after year. The same 51,000 just keeps rolling over, sitting on the books, requiring Dawn and the auditor to see it. And we wanted it either let us use it or take it back.
That's why I asked, Mr. Chair, has anybody, as far as board members, reached out to Congress or Senate to try to find out what we can do, since they're not replying to them?
Are you under the idea that Browser would call you back?
I can get a hold of Browser if you need me to.
Oh, I have his cell number, but that doesn't mean he's gonna call me back in less than a week.
I mean, it's been over 100 weeks, right?
And the reason we couldn't use it as a hire is because that would be recurring funds, and this is one-time money anyway.
That's why I'm sort of apprehensive about giving the money back. I'd rather see somebody go to work with it.
Oh, I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
And we've had this discussion way too many times over the years.
No one wants to give money back.
Right.
Right. Once it's gone, you ain't getting it
Yeah.
back. Right.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to follow up and dig a little deeper on this if you guys would like, if you think it's worth it.
Alan? I don't think it's going anywhere. They want their money back.
I mean, I will say that I don't know that we've had a circumstance over the last 15 years or however long we've been carrying this where we felt restrained in a way where we wished we had necessarily been able to spend the money, that our appropriations annually have funded our programs. And it hasn't been a budgetary constraint for us. But it has continued to show up in our fund balance, and we're tracking funds that we have no legitimate way to spend. But at the same time, I at least, have not pursued trying to reach out to any of our congressional delegation. And so we're certainly happy to give it a shot if that's what the board wants.
Would they have much influence? It's the Department of Labor who would be making that decision. They do, okay.
David Rouser calls the Department of Labor, though, probably.
I didn't know. I mean, I was just wondering how,
More so than DWS at the state.
Probably.
Sticky. Yep.
Well, you want to do that? You want to delay returning?
I mean, if you guys can approve this, I just have to cut a check. So I cannot cut the check until you tell me to.
I would ask council, Mr. Chair, if I could interject again. What are the repercussions of not returning the money other than them trying to take the money from our future funding?
None until we try to spend it.
Right. I don't think there are any repercussions.
I think my understanding, this has been around longer than I've been here, but is that it's just gonna hang in limbo. It's just.
Right.
Right. Isn't.
If they're not willing to tell us we can spend it now, they're never going to tell us we can spend it. And if we can't spend it, we don't need it.
Well, did the prior legislation give you or anybody else ideas or criteria of what you can spend it on? And if so, what changed between then and now?
It's the type of money that it was shot down for.
Okay.
Normally, we are a reimbursable based, so whatever payroll expense I have from November, I'm gonna ask for reimbursement for in December. This right here is something at the end of June where we went through and we had people with accrued vacation time.
Okay.
That accrued vacation time, so we would have cash on our books to cover that liability. So our books wouldn't look so skewed because, like right now, like with the, you guys probably noticed it more in the counties or whatever, when we had to put the pension liabilities on the books, it's not a cash transaction, but it really skewed the amount of assets we had to cover those liabilities, depending on, how big your organization was. So that's what they were trying to prevent was they wanted the assets to equal the liabilities.
Right.
And
I think the ultimate problem is that when we get an appropriation from the state, we have a 2-year window to spend the funds. And any funds that we don't expend by the end of the 2 years, we're not eligible to spend anymore. Now, we don't ever have any problem with it because they give us 2 years. It's not 2 years worth of money. They give us 1 year worth of money every year, but you get 2 years to spend it. So you can flex money from 1 year to the next. And so we can spend money that was appropriated to us this year and money that was appropriated to us last year. But we've already spent all the money that was appropriated to us the year before that because it was going to expire by now anyway. But this just predates that by so many years. It doesn't seem like it could possibly have been
It was a county standard that
I think it
we
was
put
a
in
mis-
place, and we weren't, and the accounting provide, I'm assuming the accountants at the time, the auditors. At the time, they were trying to cover the liability. They weren't sure how it would all work out because it was a new pronouncement that they made for the government for us to cover, for us to have that liability in our books. Because before it wasn't on our books. It was only recorded when we paid it out.
The problem
Somebody
is
went on
probably-
vacation.
Probably the problem is in the years that we were taking that out, we weren't paying vacation out of it. Probably.
No, because,
And so we
well,
did
at
take it
that
out.
time, the people who had accrued that much is what it was.
So,
And so as we went on, it rolled into fund balance. And so to take it out of fund balance, we have to approve to y'all. What it probably should have, personally, it probably shouldn't have gone into fund balance. It should have rolled into some sort of liability account, escrow account, but it's in fund balance. So,
None of us were here when all this happened.
none of us.
so we would have had to.
So is it not too late to do that now?
It's too
Yes, it
late
is.
to do that now.
I mean, at least the state says it's too late.
Yeah, I mean,
And ultimately they decide because they're the grantee or grantor, you know, they get to make the rules on, you know, so the Department of Labor creates the rules that the state has to follow, and the state has to follow those rules, but they can interpret those rules to be more strict than the federal rules to ensure that we spend the federal dollars in compliance with the federal laws. And so this is probably a case where the state is.
The state's usually more restrictive than what the federal law comes down. And so the state has told us this is what they want us to do. So there really isn't.
So the state would have to approve any other use of this money, and they're saying
No,
because it won't.
because it's too old.
It's too old, it won't meet the federal guidelines.
Yes, sir.
And we think that they are not going to change their minds on that. And if we're not able to spend it, we just as soon return it. Maybe somebody else can spend it, or maybe not. But if we can't, we'd rather return it. But if that's staff's opinion, and obviously if the board disagrees, then we will do whatever.
When does the year end for this?
6:30, our normal year. And if we wanted to get it off our books for this year, I would have to cut the check back to the state before 6:30.
You want to delay this?
6:30 tonight or six?
No, I'm sorry, June 30th, I'm sorry, but our year end is June 30th, 2025, I'm
But
sorry.
everything has different, all of these things have different year ends. That's why I had to ask that question.
Right, yeah.
We could approve this amendment now.
I won't cut the check.
Yeah, you can approve it conditionally, and you can direct us that this is approved, but, you know, try to reach out to, you know, Rouser or whomever. And if you get no traction, then cut the check. And if you get traction, then don't cut the check, or something along those lines.
Cut the check in April or May or something.
Okay, yes, sir. And I'll let y'all know before I do it. I'll, you know, like, we can just walk in there and cut it and mail it to them. So, and she didn't give me a deadline. On that email, there was no deadline. It's just.
Heck, we've been carrying it for 15 years. Why would we need a deadline?
Right.
Well, I'm, to be honest, I'm surprised they didn't give me a deadline usually when they want something, they want it a little bit quicker than.
The deadline.
Yeah, when you got to give it back.
Yeah.
The deadline is 15 years ago. That's. the problem.
Yeah.
If you could CC me in on your traffic, let me know who you spoke with or who you've been conversing with and thing, and maybe the rest of the board members as well, so we can try to.
Okay.
I'll probably send it to Chance Lambeth at Rouser's office.
I'm having lunch with Chance tomorrow. I'll mention it to him.
Does make you wonder how much money is floating around.
Unaccounted.
Oh, yeah.
Accounted for, right? Nobody can spend.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, that if we give it back, maybe somebody will
Comes
spend
back
it.
to, yeah.
Reallocate.
Even if it goes back to the Department of Labor and they just reallocate it back out.
A lot of times the Division of Workforce Solutions, they have pots of money where they've gotten it back and they redistribute it as special grants, like our, the infrastructure.
It's just that it hasn't expired yet.
Yeah.
When they do that. This is expired money.
I don't know, like our infrastructure monies and stuff like that.
Problem, exactly.
They have no problem doing that.
So we'll do, I think, if I'm hearing the board right, we'll do a conditional approval of this budget amendment with the condition being that we reach out to our congressional delegation to see if anybody can push Department of Labor to make a decision on what we're supposed to do with this $52,000. And that if we get any sort of positive reaction or feedback and think it might go somewhere, then we'll hold off until that resolves itself. And if it looks like it's really not going anywhere, then at some point, we'll decide that it's not going anywhere. Before the end of the fiscal year, we'll cut that check and we'll report back to you guys.
Well, and even if it goes somewhere and they say we can spend it, I can spend this money this year. I mean, I can spend it very quickly. And so, I mean, regardless, it can be off of our books by 6:30.
Right.
And that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right, one way or another.
Spend it or send it back.
Yeah.
Spend it or send it.
Want a motion on that?
Yeah, so we will,
Motion.
did you get all of that? So ditto, a second?
So moved.
All right, so we got Brenda, Mayor Bobby. Aye, any opposed? Motion passes, Dawn, you understand that?
Yeah, I understand it.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, attachment, did I see this one?
So the next item is this
Yeah,
meeting
calendar?
calendar.
Even see
Yeah,
that.
we got it on my calendar.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay,
So needless to say, this is our last meeting of the calendar year, and one of the things we do at the last meeting of the calendar year is approve our meeting schedule for the following year. We have already scheduled the annual meeting for February 27th at 6:30 at Brunswick Senior Resources Building at 101 Stone Chimney and Supply. So it's on here because it's a meeting of the organization, but of course, we've already set that meeting as a board so that we could reserve the space and move forward on planning for that event. So the proposed 2025 meeting schedule is as shown here. February 10th, we'll have our, as proposed at least, we'll have our next board meeting. We will meet in May to present the draft budget to you guys. We'll meet in June to approve that budget for next fiscal year. We'll meet in August, potentially with a budget amendment based on final numbers from state funding and federal funding. And then Monday, October 13th, we're proposing to meet. That's typically when we do our big final budget amendment, or not final, but our big budget amendment where we can really true up the numbers based on our final allocations. We do my evaluation at that meeting. We present final 2025 budget numbers. It is Columbus Day, which is not a state holiday, but it's a federal holiday. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you would rather not meet on that day. But we do typically meet on the second Monday of the month.
as the only one here with a vowel at the end of his last name, we're not even allowed to call it Columbus Day anymore. It's Indigenous Persons Day. Just a
In
smack.
Columbus County, they probably still call it Columbus Day.
We just passed a motion last year, we had to make it indigenous.
Oh, really?
Really?
All of our.
We haven't even taken an action. We just leave it alone. It ain't broke, don't fix it.
We've had a few people in the Buckhead community.
Really? Well, yeah, you have that population.
Yeah,
We really don't.
For sure.
A big population.
Yeah.
And it's just big.
So you made the motion to make it indigenous, did it pass?
Yep.
Okay. Keep that to yourself, share it.
We've already heard it.
Yeah, sometimes you do things and you do it for the wrong reason, but you have to do it because of the climate that's there.
Ain't that the truth?
So, but I don't think most of our, it's not a day off, I don't believe, for most of us. We would not want to meet on a day when we wouldn't, when folks are not going to be working or whatever, if it's a day off. So I put it on there in case it's a day that we should move. And then otherwise, December 8th will be, mirror the meeting we had today. Are there any comments or concerns about that calendar?
Looks like it's the second month.
Second Monday.
It is the second Monday.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a meeting or anything that recurring?
Typically, second Mondays work pretty well for us.
Okay, then I will accept the motion to approve the meeting calendar for 2025. Coleman, a second?
Second.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you're here.
My old job.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And you guys always do a great job, but you'll put these on you'll send us calendar. invites.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This is the one group of all the boards I'm on that I always get meeting invites. So thank you so much for that, because the others will send you a meeting invite like the day before. It's like, oh, man,
Yeah,
if I forgot
right,
it.
via a text.
Exactly.
Like, oh yeah, I had nothing around. Yeah. I get it, buddy.
We realize that your calendars get pretty busy.
Yeah, put these on there and then I'll
Right.
good chance I'll be
I
here.
put them in for the whole year.
Yeah, I think April usually sends out a tentative, after you guys adopt the calendar, she'll send out tentative calendar invites for the whole year. And then as the dates firm up and the packet and everything, it converts from a tentative to a real one. But yeah, you'll get those.
All righty, moving on. Time for staff reports. Alan, you're up.
And I'm just gonna quickly stop sharing my screen since there's nothing else. Oh, no, there is something else in there, actually. All right, so first thing I wanted to just bring to your attention is I wanted to remind you guys that at this February annual meeting, we will be needing to present a slate of officers and municipal representatives to the executive committee to the general membership. And so typically what we do is we create a nominating committee of board members that reaches out to the other board members, make sure folks still want to serve and are able to serve. Brings that slate of members and officers to this board at the February meeting, which then board approves and forwards on to the general membership at the annual meeting. So obviously it is the board's pleasure as to how to set up the nominating committee, but I just want to put it on your radar and make sure that you guys know. I think in the past, it has typically been the officers who do it. And so, you know, whatever is your pleasure. I don't think it requires an action. I think you guys can just sort of decide to do whatever it is you want to do. But just wanted that on your radar. We should, the goal is to have a slate of officers and municipal members for the next board
Refresh
meeting.
my memory. We do this annually, and I've been on the nominating committee for forever. Was it 2 or 3 members? 3, right?
So we have, so there's a 9-member executive committee. The 4 county delegates are automatically on the executive committee. So we have 5 municipal executive committee members. The bylaws aren't quite as specific as this, but what we have, our practice has been is that each county gets a municipal member. And then we have a 5th at-large member. Technically, we don't have to have one from every county. We just can't have more than 3, I think, or more than 2 from any one county. But we could do 2, 2, 1 and leave a county out, but we've never done that. So 4 municipal members and then an at-large. And then among those 9 people, could be county commissioners, could be municipal members. We have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary treasurer position that need to be appointed. They're all annual appointments. And there's no term limits on any of the members. The only qualification to be a board member is that you have to be your community's delegate to the COG board. So alternates, don't think are eligible. I don't know, though I don't think it says so specifically. And then there's one other criteria that we didn't realize, and we're actually technically in violation of right now, is that you're not supposed to have two officers from the same county. And you two are from the same county.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's the first time hearing that.
So
I've been here
we
for
can
about
do one of
6,
two
7 years.
things. We can change our officers so that we don't have more than one from the same county, or we can change our bylaws at the next annual meeting to remove that requirement, because there's only 4 counties. It's not,
Yeah,
That seems ridiculous to me.
yeah.
it's restrictive. I think you should pick whoever the best person is,
And who wants to serve, right?
who wants to serve.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to bring a bylaws amendment to you at your next board meeting that you would also present at the annual meeting. So there would be 2 actions at the annual meeting when there's usually one, an election of your municipal members and officers and a
Let me
bylaws.
just throw
amendment.
this out. For us in particular, only having 4 counties, I know that, like my buddy is the chair up in Ashe County. They have 17 counties in that COG. It's crazy. How do you get anything accomplished with that many people sitting around the table? Is it really necessary? I mean, we should probably do the amendment, being as we need 3 people and we only have 4 counties, it might be hard to not have. You know what I mean?
I mean, we could change it to say no more than 2 so that one county doesn't get all 3
3 seats.
seats on the executive
No, I'll buy that
officers.
theory.
That shouldn't, but even still, that restricts you. I mean, I think we've always operated in a collaborative way where we try to spread around
Yeah.
representation, so it's never really been a problem. But we could remove it altogether, or we could just change it from no county can have 2 to no county can have more than 2.
I think that's been broke a lot through the years.
As long as I'm here.
That's when I'm thinking back, like with Charlie Robinbark on and, you know,
Yeah,
and different ones.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Charlie and
Deb
Deb
Hayes.
Hayes were both
Yeah.
officers at the same time.
They
Yep.
were.
We never noticed it.
And, one of the men, other than Charlie. I mean, it's been broken many times in.
Right,
Like the electronic meeting law, it changed less than 30 days ago.
yeah, right.
Right. And I wrote an update right here because I was sitting there reading and I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably right.
My preference would be with 4 counties, in these 4 counties.
It's
we don't
gonna
have
happen.
Contention between these 4 counties, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't see the.
pretty good.
I could see it in some of the other COGs that have 12 to 17 members. I get it.
And a lot of COGs that the counties and the municipalities, they just don't get along nearly as well as we do
Right.
here. I mean, I think if you wanted to keep in something as a guardrail in case one day there's contention, but it just has not been a problem.
But they can always change it again. If it becomes contentious, just vote on it.
Right.
Take it back.
All right, I'll bring you guys a proposal to remove it.
That'll work. We'll do that. So are we supposed to form this 3-member committee today? It doesn't, I know in the past what we've done is the chairman has appointed 3 people to be the nominating committee. We have gone around the table and asked who wants to be on it, because it's not the most popular thing in the world to do. Somebody always gets offended. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, since I've been, it's been the officers, right? So
Right.
that would by default be the 3 of us, right? But I don't mind, I'm not happy to not be on it, but I'm also happy to do it. So whatever the pleases the board,
I mean, we've basically done it over the phone. It's not like we've
Right.
met to do it.
And historically, we've always just reinstalled the existing officers until somebody is either ineligible or
Right.
doesn't want.
Loses their election.
Or doesn't want to serve anymore, and they just sort of give it up because they don't have the time, or whatever. The truth of the matter is, there's very few responsibilities of the of the officers. And so it doesn't, you know.
Yeah, chair.
It hasn't really, other than chair, I don't think it's really been it hasn't been to our detriment that we haven't really changed our officers so often.
And we've always had a very amicable board. We've never had any contention or anything. We all seem to be friends, so.
That's the illusion
Right.
So yeah, whatever your pleasure is, I don't think it needs to be a formal action of the board. It's just, it seems like you guys should agree on whatever it is you do.
Right. Does anybody have objections to having the officers do it another year?
I don't object to it. I think, when we go to vote on it, I think we should set limits. We don't need to be on it. Just my opinion. I'm just coming on, right? And him and I were talking about this earlier, but somebody gets in here and I'm guilty of, just like all the rest of us in this room are, but you get in there and you sit down and, okay, I gotta go to the meeting. You get complacent, in other words, what I'm trying to say. I think bringing new people in, bringing new ideas to the front is gonna help the future, right? For planning and everything else.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but we're such a small
I do.
group
I disagree.
that anybody could bring up anything at any time.
Yeah, there wouldn't be no argument. Also, we can discuss it, everybody.
Sure.
We can all talk about it and let it fly,
Yeah. Again, with only 4 counties, everybody's got a voice at this table, and no doubt about that, even those online.
While you guys are talking about it, speaking of online, Rich Alt has raised his hand.
Okay, what you got, man?
I agree with I can't see who spoke. I agree that just rubber stamping everybody year after year is not as fair as having it more opened for opportunity and then the vote is the vote. People get it or they don't get it. Basically, I don't necessarily say you can only do it 2 years or 5 years, but you should be able to, other people should be able to break into the system.
Mayor, just to clarify, the nominating committee presents the slate at the annual meeting at 101 Stone Chimney at the end of February, and anybody from the floor can make a motion. Just because the nominating committee presents a slate does not mean that's it. Anybody
in practice, in reality, that how often does that would that change?
Oh, it's happened. I recall one year, didn't pass, but somebody did make a nomination from the floor. Remember that?
I've taken my opportunity to express my opinion, and my opinion is
that's what we have.
Should be different. But thank you.
Well, what's the pleasure of the board? Do it as we've historically done it, leave the nominating committee to the officers, and changes could be made from the floor at the annual meeting? Anybody objects, or do you want to do this a whole different way? I'm game for anything. I'm not married to any idea.
When something's working, it's working. You don't try to fix something.
I'm a huge proponent. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, but.
Still open to everybody that does want it. If I decided I wanted it, I'd just come up.
Right, and you would.
Mike.
That's right.
Right, you would.
That's right.
Let's serve on the board.
Right, if you know who the nominating committee is, you certainly can call any one of us and say, I have some pretty good interest in becoming the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, treasurer, whichever case may be.
I want to kind of volunteer to say, look here, I'd like to try it.
Yeah.
And we vote on it.
And it is that simple.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at, the simplicity of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Are we good with that? Those online? Mayor Auld, Marty? And alternates.
Just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So continue with this system as it's traditionally been done.
Right, the 3 officers be
Three
the
officers will be
nominating.
the nominating committee, but if anybody else wants to run.
Throw their name
I'm
in.
not gonna keep anybody out. But
Right.
give everybody the opportunity who
Sure, throw
wants
your
any of
name
these
in.
positions.
You want this chair? Throw your name in. Brenda's or
Right.
Mayor
And then
Barbie's.
we would
Throw
bring
your name
that
in.
slate for the vote.
to the whole
The
body.
whole body.
I think Commissioner Cook may have a comment. He's
What do you got, Marty?
he's messaging us because we can't hear him. So bear with us just a second.
Oh, right. Yeah, Marty is unmuted, but again, we still don't hear him. So I don't know if he's typing.
Oh,
Sending a direct message to this account. So it's not going to the full chat.
he says he says he thinks that's a problem, that if a person wants to do this from the floor, it's too hard for them.
What did it say?
What's too hard?
I think,
Nomination.
the nomination, I think. Is that correct, Mr. Cook?
Yeah.
Go during the meeting, it's too hard to
Yes.
get us to nominate.
Oh.
Also, there's an issue with some folks don't know at times if there is a vacancy.
So it's supposed to be published, right?
It is.
So we do send out the agenda, which includes the nominating committee's slate of officers.
Right. Goes to the whole body.
In the packet to all of the voting members.
But they would not see that. I mean, they would not see the person from the floor until they got there that day. They wouldn't even
Obviously.
be able to think about it.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to go campaign for it.
Right.
Well, traditionally, that's been the issue, right?
Biggest problem is nobody ever wants it.
Right, because the structure of this board, let's be honest, that you have very little control of anything, because it's all federal and state money.
Absolutely.
Our real goal is just oversight to ensure that that executes properly, right? That's the purpose of this board.
Yep.
So no one traditionally has ever wanted these seats because there's really, I hate to use the word power, but there's no real.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing.
There's not a lot of discretion. There's not a lot of
discretion. Thank you. That's a better word.
Commissioner Cook says they have to create a coalition ahead of time. And he doesn't disagree with what we're doing or saying, but it just from an objective perspective, I think it would be more of an open forum if you do it at the annual meeting. I wanted to do it especially 10 to 15 years ago, but I couldn't figure out how to get on the board. And I wasn't going to stand up and say, I want it. To clarify that, though, at that point, he was an alternate. Alternates cannot serve. It's however, whoever appoints the board delegates.
Yep.
The alternate can fill in for, like Marty can fill in for you.
I will say one of the problems is this a little bit of the complexity of the arrangements, that you don't have to nominate county folks because they're automatically on it. And then we have the municipal folks. So sometimes communicating that becomes a longer communication than you want, and then it just confuses folks. But I think that, for clarification for the board in the room and on the call, if we were talking about some way to, encourage other folks to be on the board, we're really only talking about the 5 municipal seats, because the county seats are automatic.
Yep.
And those are basically done by action of those county commissioners. So you have 5 municipal seats and your officers. If you would like, we certainly can reach out to all voting members and let them know that if they're interested, to contact the chair of the nominating committee or something along those lines, to avoid the problem of people feeling the need to say something at the meeting, just opening it up. I think in the past, we haven't had people knocking down the door, but that's, maybe we don't know.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Let's judge the interest first. Let's go, I like that step. Let's contact Mike if you.
Hold on, or you or Brenda.
And then we'll judge the interest. If there's people, I feel like we're trying to set up a competition where there may not be, but I don't want to speak for others who may be interested. I mean, maybe you are interested in serving, and that'd be great. I would encourage you to do that, right? I mean,
Right, but then it's my choice, say, look, exactly, I want it, and then you could bring it up, and
And then they.
yeah, it could be between me and you, and whoever wants to,
right.
you know, get it
I
like.
just want to get
Let's
three
not-
people who want to put the most energy into
Yeah,
it.
let's
That's
not
what our goal is.
complicate the process. Anybody could throw their name in the hat. But it has to be one of the 4 county commissioners or the 5 municipals.
The officers.
Yeah.
So there's 2 questions. One is which municipal members are on the executive committee? And then the other question is, among the 9 people on the executive committee, who are the 3 officers?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. And so I'm happy to send out an email to those who are eligible, which would be the delegates from the counties, from the municipalities, as far as being on the
Right.
executive committee, and from all of the delegates. You have to be elected first to the executive committee before you're eligible to be an officer. So in some ways, we've got a mechanics issue.
Yes.
That's one of the things that Marty just said is, at the point when he wanted to be on, the chair was the person who makes the appointments. And the chair didn't want him on it, so he didn't get the opportunity. But that's.
Because he was an alternate, not a board member.
He wanted to be, but the chair at the time would not appoint him.
The chair of his
Yes,
commission,
yes,
wherever he was elected.
correct.
Right. That's not anything we can solve.
Do we know yet, I mean, it's only the 9th. Do we know if any of the municipal appointees have changed?
A few have. I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head.
Executive committee?
Yeah.
Oh, the executive committee, no, regular delegates,
I don't mean, I saw,
delegates, yes. There've been a few, but I'd have to go back but they haven't all submitted their new
so
appointees. Because I sent an email to all the clerks reminding them.
Mayor Alt, I'm just gonna use you as a quick example. Now, Rich, his board has determined that he's the alternate to this board.
He's the delegate.
The delegate, rather.
Rebecca is the alternate.
Delegate. He's the delegate. Have any of the municipalities changed?
Their delegates?
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't know what they are off the top of my head. There's only been like 2 or 3. I'll have to go
Like,
through.
for example, you remember last year, we changed Charlie for
Right.
David Joyner.
Correct.
So there's an example of a municipality is deciding we're going to switch up our appointment. That does happen.
Okay. Well, what's the pleasure of the board? Want to just leave it at the 3 officers on the nominating committee, or somebody want to make a change to that?
I agree with the way it is, just, anybody wants to.
Just contact any of them.
Want to try it and put my name on it.
Right. Okay, that good? All right, so we'll leave it at that. The 3 officers are the nominating committee, and we'll go from there. Okay. That's it. All right, annual meeting catering.
So I just,
Already did this.
well, we got quotes for the buffet like we normally do. And we just inquired about how much more expensive would it be to do a sit-down dinner?
Oh, I can tell you.
So I just, I'm leaning towards continuing to do it a buffet, but I just wanted to bring it up to you guys in case you felt for whatever reason, some neat reason to change. The sit-down dinner would probably save a little bit of time. We don't have people in line, but I think you have a lot less choice in what you eat. And so, yeah, I think it's a real trade-off. I didn't feel like it was worth changing, but since we got the quotes, I figured I'd let you guys weigh in.
I'll tell you this. I run and have been since 2016. I run the Bella Italia annual banquet for the Brunswick Community College. And as the president of that, it's a huge difference. Because now you just don't have the caterer sending 4 or 5 people to set up the buffet and pour drinks and distribute the food to each plate. We do a sit down, and it is a 5-course dinner with wine pairings. It's a whole to do. It's black tie. the caterer brings about 30, 35 people. Because each waitress or waiter can only handle so many tables. You know, it's to clean up, it's to put the next plate down, pour the wines and yada, yada. It makes the budget go through the roof.
Our budget wasn't so ridiculously high comparatively, which maybe makes, begs the question, are they budgeting to bring enough people to actually function? In which case, we would, not want to mess with
The
that.
issue last year, Wes will recall that salads were supposed to be at each seating when we walked in the room, and they weren't. They made people go up. So it created a series of lines. You had to go up to get your salad, and you could sit down and eat. They cleared the place. Then you went up to get your food. Was another ridiculous line. Then they did it even with dessert at the end, right? You gotta go up and get it. So, yeah.
That was with David's Deli though. Last year we did middle of the island, didn't we?
Yeah, but I think they were behind schedule and they did not get the salads put on the table. So we can tell them we want the salads and the desserts need to be plated on the table. The only thing that's buffet is the dinner, because they're supposed to be going around with the appetizers as like cocktail, going around with the tray and not having a buffet for the appetizer.
We can work out those details. I just wanted to make sure nobody felt like wedded to switching to a seated dinner. And it doesn't sound like anybody thinks that that's a great change we should make.
Seated dinners are nice, but, I believe in knowing your neighbors. And, you're gonna be confined to your tables. If
That's
you're
true.
not up moving around, and what's gonna get you up moving around, go get your food and stand in line with people and get to know each other.
Great point, man. Very good.
So this also is not something that requires a board action. I was just looking for some direction. It seems like we're leaning towards buffet. That's what I'm gonna do unless somebody tells me.
It's the least expensive way, I can promise you that.
All right, we'll do that. Last thing I have for you guys is, in the last page of your packet is the contract summary, since the prior report. So particularly for the new members in the room, the executive committee has granted me certain authority by resolution to execute contracts on behalf of the Council of Governments. There are exceptions to that. It's not, I don't have full authority, depending on the size of the grant or whether it's subject to funding availability or whether there's matching funds involved or something along those lines. But in return for that grant of authority, the executive committee has asked me to provide every month a summary of all the contracts that I enter into on behalf of the Council of Governments. And so this is the shortest contract summary I think I've ever given you guys. Must just be related to the time of year. I will say, since I did this, we got one more big one, I think. We finally got the Brunswick County Aging Services contract signed. The next check I write to Brunswick County is going to be the biggest check I've ever written, I'm sure. Getting paid back for a couple of many months of aging services. So that'll be on your next one, but it is something I wanted to just sort of let you know that is finally executed. But I don't have anything to present to you on behalf of this. I just wanted to let you guys know that these are contracts that we've entered since the last report at the last meeting.
Okay.
And the top of my head, I don't think I have anything else to report to you guys. So unless there's any questions for me.
Any questions for me? Yeah, moving on to the area on aging. Holly?
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Your long-term care ombudsman have been very busy. They are your advocates for persons living in long-term care in our 4-county region. They've submitted their annual report in the past month and just sharing trends and things like that with the state long-term care ombudsman office. They do a fantastic job. They are super busy out serving the 52 facilities within our 4-county region. We have 2 and they have about 2,000 beds each that they oversee. And for people that don't know what the long-term care ombudsman program is, they're advocates for persons living in long-term care and they're just mediators. We don't have any regulatory over the agencies, but you'd be amazed at the things they can solve without it going to the next level within facilities. And they work really well with the facility administrators and the staff. But of course, they're always there just for the residents' rights. Project Care is our North Carolina supported program that helps people caring for persons with memory impairments across the state. And the Alzheimer's Association have picked up and are going to be advocates for that program. They're going to advocate to your legislators to get more funding for it. We have it hosted here at our agency, but she covers 12 counties instead of our 4. She is super busy. She's already booked out through February with home visits and case management for persons caring for those living with dementia. So I thought that was exciting that they're going to advocate for us to get more funds, hopefully for that. Logan, our new aging compliance specialist, has done her first monitoring visit over in Pender County, and it went fabulous. Pender Adult Services does a great job serving older adults in Pender County. We have a new senior center coming in Brunswick County, Ash, so we'll be making a visit to that.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll be visiting next week. We have to go and look at it to make sure it meets all the criteria for a senior center. We moved recently, probably the last 2 months, the nutrition site in Carolina Beach from one location to St. Paul's Methodist Church now. And I met with Leland about their age-friendly community plan recently. So we have been busy. We do need representation for our senior childhood legislators in our counties. And if it's okay with the members, I would love to send you a description of that volunteer job, and maybe you all could help us recruit some folks to serve in those roles. And that's it for me.
Anybody have any questions for Holly?
I will, thank you.
Okay, moving on to continual care.
Hi. Thank you for having me. So,
Real quickly, Andrea, you were not here at the beginning of the meeting when we did introductions. So if you could introduce yourself to the new folks in the room.
I unfortunately have a standing conflict meeting, but I'm Andrea Stowe. I'm the Homeless Services Director. We are, as a COG, we're the lead agency for our Cape Fear Homeless Continuum of Care. And we actually cover only 3 counties, Pender, New Hanover, and Brunswick County, with those homeless services through our Cape Fear Continuum of Care. Since we've met last, we provided rental assistance payments and case management to 22 individuals for permanent housing. Very excitingly, it is the last payments we are making because that grant is ending, and we are gratefully transitioning those participants over to Coastal, who were able to get an expansion and take those folks on. And so we have been working diligently in the last few months to make that a really smooth transition, both for the clients and the program. We were able to submit our collaborative application to HUD in the last 2 months to be able to receive funding for 2024 and 2025 and 2026. We are working on our contracts for our grantees for our emergency solutions grant for next year. And then our coordinated entry services, which for those of you that don't know, we coordinate anyone entering homelessness in those 3 counties. We try to be a central point of access, and we coordinate services throughout all 3 counties. And so we also man a hotline and do some follow-up with folks that are experiencing homelessness, largely for the first time. And so we had over 200 calls come into that hotline. It was a little bit down because of the holiday in the last 2 months. Of those, 63 are entered our coordinated entry program, which just means they are literally homeless and in need of housing. Of those, about 60% were single individuals and 40% were members of families. During that time, 19% were chronically homeless, which means they've been homeless for a year or more in the last 3 years. Over 54% identified having a disability. And 11% were veterans, which is a higher percentage than normal. We do coordinate a lot of veteran services, and we do have a great response system here in those 3 counties. So we're able to connect those folks really quickly. We also have seen an uptick in our aging population that are experiencing homelessness. So Holly and I have been working really closely at those strategies as well. And then we did have 25 individuals leave our system, which means they were able to largely be housed. Of those, 80% entered rental without any ongoing subsidy. So it meant that we were able to connect them with something that they're going to be able to kind of maintain on their own. But sometimes that means they were able to get help with a deposit, or they were able to work with a case management to get all of their documents ready. But it's not going to take ongoing that permanent supportive housing like we talked about early. So vast majority of those folks are going to be doing that on their own that exited. And are at our last coordinated entry meeting. So we meet twice a month to get folks together to say, how can we work together to help this? We had 15 different agencies represented in the last few months. So we do have a lot of folks at the table working on this together. And that's a big part of what we do, is coordinating those entities to work together towards this. Had to be quick.
Any questions for Andrea?
We are gearing up for our annual point in time count. And so this afternoon I'll be meeting with Brunswick County, because the last 10 days of January, we perform a census count of folks that are experiencing homelessness. So our Brunswick folks are getting together to talk about how to do that, and other counties will be following.
Thank you, Andrea. Any questions? Wes, you're up. Local Government Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you all are hungry and ready to get out of here, so I'll make my remarks brief. We're continuing to do projects throughout the region, including in working on the project team for the Pender County Land Use Plan, which I believe you all may have gotten a brief on last week.
Sure.
Working with Columbus County on a number of issues. I talk to Gary quite frequently. Our flood mitigation assistant individual, he may actually be heading out west to assist with homeowner intake. And just, they've got a lot of need out there, and folks that understand how to facilitate these grant programs. Perhaps, where the resource usually used to be on the eastern side of the state, we got to send some of that expertise west to do whatever we can do. And then lastly, we will be, myself and another staff member, at a luncheon with Representative Eiler in the town of Sunset Beach to talk about some of the things they've done over the past couple of years to really help facilitate investment and growth there in their local government. And they've really taken a lot of strides over the last couple of years. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Wes. By the way, it was good to see you Saturday.
Yes, and thank you. Yes, I don't know if folks are aware, but Brunswick County has quite a parade. It's in fact in Oak Island, but it's the real deal. Yeah. So anyways, thank you.
A lot of parades.
I looked out, I was in the back of a convertible, and I looked out, and there was Wes and his family. Good to see him.
Were you warm in the back of that convertible?
No, I was.
It was cold. It was cold Saturday. Our kids were bundled up.
I'm in a 57 Corvette. There's nowhere to hide. Even if you sat down in the seat instead of sitting on the back, the wind was still right there because it's so tiny. No, it was chilly. Okay, workforce development, Ginger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so right now we're preparing for spring. So we'll be issuing our request for proposals for our programs that are administered through our NC Work system. Business services, sector partnerships is really big. Sector partnerships is when you get people together from a specific industry and then they work together to find solutions. And we kind of launch those and kind of feed and water them until they get legs of their own. So the Cape for Manufacturing Partnership is going really strong. We've got great representation from all 4 counties and interest from adjacent counties. So we're trying to kind of imitate that. And we're working on one in construction that's sort of getting some momentum, as well as hospitality and retail and tourism, and also an interest in ag, which is sort of coming out of the woodwork with the wineries and things like that. So it's really interesting to see how that's coming together. So I'll keep you posted on that. We were recently recognized for attaining a certified career pathway in manufacturing. So that was a recognition by the NC Works Commission. So staff went up to their meeting, their quarterly meeting, and got pictures taken and all that stuff. We've got certificates to hang in our career centers. Let's see. I'd say the biggest thing that is on our minds right now is the potential change in legislation. It's WIOA is up for reauthorization, and it's really scary. They're talking about, this is Virginia Fox's team, but this was bicameral, bilateral. There was influence from both sides. They're talking about having a 50% training requirement out of our adult dislocated worker funds. And that is nearly impossible. We struggle enough to get people that are interested in training as it is. And so there's a lot of movement momentum. We didn't think it would be pushed through. There's talk about it being tacked on to other legislation that will be pushed through. And it's just a very scary time because not only will it severely strangle our ability to provide services to the people in our communities, there also isn't the demand for the training. And this is something that Virginia Fox has had on her. It's just stuck in her craw, as they say. And she's very adamant about that. So there's little, they don't think there will be room for DOL to really interpret it to include staff support for the training. And so, it's just not something that is feasibly functional. So we're really concerned about that. So for anyone who is inclined to reach out to your senators, a lot of senators have already kind of, put a hold. So when they tried to hotline it, but it'll happen, this week, if anything happens. So, but just kind of keep that on your mind. It's very, it would be very detrimental, not just to the COG, but also to your communities. So it is of great concern.
Yeah.
So that's the big.
Hey, we want to provide the services to the clients services that they're asking for.
Yeah.
We don't want to be restricted to provide the services that the government thinks that the clients need if the clients don't think that they need the service.
Yeah. And it does include on the job training, but that's even something that, we've really struggled to push right now in this climate because companies just want to go ahead and hire people and they don't want to go through all the red tape. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Let you know.
If you'd like more information, reach out to me.
Madam Vice Chair, do you want to take over the meeting while Mike is stepped out?
It seems our chair has stepped out for a moment.
She's got reelected.
Is there any members with comments? Okay, Mr. Chairman, do you?
Apologize for that. It had become critical. I don't have a lot. I want to thank everybody. Hope that your 2024 was exceptional. Mine was quite a unique year. And Ginger, I wanted to apologize to you that I wasn't at the online for the NC Works Commission meeting Friday morning. It's one of these, I have to learn better time management, apparently. This last week has been insane. Things keep changing. And I got called that I had to get online with another meeting. And I'll learn better time management, which I'm usually really good at. Even this morning coming in later than I wanted to because I couldn't get off the phone.
This has been a strange year, Mike.
It really has.
The whole year.
It's
Every aspect of life.
it's really been difficult. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this past year. I want to wish everybody the most amazing holidays this year. A wonderful holiday season, New Year. Wishing everybody all the best. Thank you for your participation in everything that you do. As I walked back in, I heard you say, do any members have comments? Does anybody have anything that they would like to add?
I'd just like to say Merry Christmas to Phil. Thank you for all the help you've given me. I appreciate it. I do hope you and your family have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
And thank you for the good job that y'all do. I know y'all work hard.
We do appreciate this staff. I'll put them up against any staff anywhere. Thank you all. Alan, you especially, thank you for all you do and keeping me on the straight and narrow.
My pleasure.
If nobody has any other comments, let's get at it.
Well, there's,
Food.
there's food.
Yeah, you have food.
I need to go.
I think I had.
Adjourn.
Let's do it already.
There is a schedule. It's scheduled. It's in February.
There's one in there.
Thanks for those of you online for being here. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do virtual lunch for you guys.
We, the 14th.
Oh, okay.
So it's next round.